Thanks for two really interesting presentations. Nalin, I thought I'd come to you first and kind of ask you about, you mentioned a lot about the kind of long-term vision that's required for the project you're working on. So wondering kind of what the impact of the virus had been on that, whether that had really shown the value of it or whether it had changed things at all.
The impact of the virus, actually, I suppose it scared us to begin with, to be perfectly honest, because we'd already embarked on the project. I got involved with it in 2013, actually, so I've been at it for 7 years, and we really got going in 2015. So we were, well committed to over 50% by the time the pandemic arrived. And although we were delivering it and are still planning to deliver the rest of it on a phased basis, the pandemic issue kind of thought, oh, hang on a minute, is the whole world going to, turn upside down? And is what we're doing relevant? But actually, that phased approach is allowing us to roll with market conditions. And what's been really interesting is that most of the occupiers that I mentioned were all deals that were done in the middle of the crisis, which showed the occupier confidence and gave us confidence to actually continue. And we've just in the process of there's both final blocks now have actually received planning consent as of this week. Sorry, hence the hesitation there. I was just trying to remember, it's only this week, and so we'll be rolling with those. So, yeah, it caused a little bit of a panic to begin with, but we're moving forward.
Oh, right. Coming to you, Barbara, similar question, whether it's changed the dynamic at all, changed the mentality, or, emphasized things that you already thought were important.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I think if we're talking about regeneration, it is difficult anyway. It's difficult with a, fair headwind and perfect circumstances, no pandemic, no Brexit. It's difficult. So you put those things in the mix, and it's about as gritty as it gets. On a practical level, COVID has cost local authorities a lot of money. Right. So just on a very practical level, all local authorities up and down the whole country are looking at their balance sheets. They're looking at their commitments. They're looking at, the amount of money they've lost in income from shutting all their sports centres and all their parking income and everything else, which has really affected them, and the amount they've had to spend on running emergency and different types of interventions for older and vulnerable people in their areas. So practically, they have less money. And then everybody looks at the market and thinks, if you're trying to regenerate somewhere like Ebury Bridge in the middle of London, the state of the market's really important. It's probably the council's most valuable piece of real estate. It does not want in any way to dispose of a bit of it in a rocky, volatile, nervous market. It wants to slow things down and, as Nalin said, phase stuff and have the ability to choose when it sells land or sells units, because at the minute is not the time to do it. You throw Croydon into the mix and you've got a real difficult regen situation in the south, certainly, of the country. And I don't know how much Croydon's reverberated in Sheffield. It's reverberating around London a great deal.
Just naturally coming to you, Nalin. What has the impact of the Croydon situation had up in the north?
No, I mean, I'm very familiar with the Croydon situation, and I think for us, particularly in Sheffield, we've still got a big gap to fill in terms of what the city offers, what that city centre offer means to local residents as well as visitors. So there's work to do which is not really affected by what's going on elsewhere. Hence that occupier demand. So despite what's going on, the fact that firms like CMS, John Lewis and Partners, Radisson are committed in the middle of this particular pandemic, for me, it actually shows you that there is that there's still that gap in Sheffield that needs to be filled. So that's also gives us the confidence to move forward. So I fully appreciate what Barbara's talking about, and we're not in the business here of disposing of sites right now, for any price, because it's just the wrong time. But because we are the developer in what we're doing with this work, it's slightly different. And as I said in the presentation, we're taking that long-term view over it.
I wonder, Barbara, you mentioned in terms of timing and the significance of that. What about the importance of a project like this? Is it got greater importance at this juncture? The building has been is already being put forward as a major part of the recovery. How do you see yourself fitting into that?
Oh, hugely, Zach, hugely. I mean, like Nalin, obviously, Ebury Bridge is being delivered through the council's wholly owned company. So, and we're doing that because the people who can hold risk and carry on funding in a downturn or in a volatile market are local authorities. They can hold risk over 100 years. They can hold units and have them at market rent, sub-market rent, sub-market rent, or sell them. And it's their own choice, and they can make those choices every year. And that is the real joy of having a local authority development company. That's, in both Sheffield and Westminster, I think, solidly delivering through those mechanisms. And it is the long-term vision and being able to hold on to things that really matters. I mean, on Ebury Bridge, I mean, you haven't asked me really specifically about partners, but the partnership on Ebury Bridge with Bouygues started because we stepped in to sustain a development agreement that had fallen in the middle of Westminster because the money had been pulled because the market was wobbly. So maintaining building, maintaining development, maintaining building, maintaining supply chains, maintaining jobs is one of the really positive outcomes from local authority companies. We all learned from 2008, if you let the construction market crash, it takes a long time to bring it back. It's a huge part of GDV, and we need to maintain it. Local authority companies, I think, have a big role in that.
No, I wonder in terms of for the supply chains in Sheffield, how crucial a project like yours is, because they don't come around that often. How important is it to for you to work in that sustained way and continue to guarantee those phases of work?
No, it is really important, and I sort of echo what Barbara was just saying in terms of what local authorities can bring here. We've got that. We have to have that long-term view. We have to have that long-term view on how we are shaping and supporting not just the economy now, but what those economies of the future will be. And therefore, the work we're doing, particularly with the Heart of the City scheme, in generating so many jobs in the construction industry in its initial phases, but also securing long-term jobs. So the HSBC project secured 2,000 jobs in the middle of Sheffield city centre. That's big for Sheffield. That's really big and really important. And by companies like that also, nailing their colours to the mast regarding Sheffield city centre, that instills that confidence, and we need confidence at this moment in time. Confidence is a big issue, and that confidence, which started with us starting on the project and picking up something that had stalled for so many years, has really helped to move things forward. And my occasional visits into the city centre, I'm so pleased to see the construction workers supporting those local cafes, supporting the local news agents, supporting that local retail environment as well. So, despite the lockdown scenario, but that's all adding to what we're doing, and the apprenticeships that are coming through as well, and the local jobs is really important. So I think local authorities, we've always had a big role to play in this arena, but I think this maybe the importance of what we do is probably highlighted even more just so.
And just a last quick one, Barbara, picking up, you mentioned the the partnership you had with Bouygues. Wondering
Yeah.
in terms of like defining that, whether there was a shift from, you know, the transactional nature that can sometimes be established in relationships with construction companies and developers to something that was more of a partnership.
Most definitely. I mean, Bouygues won the work transactionally through a procurement, but they certainly understood us because we'd worked really closely on a joint venture. I've no doubt that improved their bid. It's an exceptional bid. They're a good constructor anyway. But now we have an opportunity as Westminster Builds, as the local authority company, to look for other opportunities with Bouygues outside of Westminster. You know, that is the result of a long-term bit of trust being built up and a partnership developed, definitely.
Brilliant. That's all we have time for. Thank you very much. Really interesting.